So let's repeat shortly what is the basis of our study. It's the law. We started last night to see the fundamental law. And I hope you understand that the Ten Commandments have in them that law that governs everything in this earth. And there is nothing that is not governed by this take and give law. And the Ten Commandments are just there to open our eyes that we don't keep them. And then the structure, our needs and our function, they are the basis of understanding. I think these four things we all need to know. And if you know these four things, we will all be on the same page. We will all be united in understanding. So we found out that we have a brain that is governing our body, and then the spirit above the brain. We do decision by yes and no. We do the decision after gain and loss. We need a motivation that must be love, that we do everything for our Lord, and we do all in trust and dependency to Him. And of course, we would do that only as we understand that we are creatures. Then we take through trust from God what we need, and so give it then through our decision. I want to make sure to understand that the will, what I want, is exactly to what God is. Yes? So when He created us in His image, He created us also to want what He is. So if He created us that we want food, then we need that food that He created for us. But on spiritual level, for the Spirit, He gave Himself so that we draw from Him everything our spirit needs is in our will. So if we would be connected to Him in trust, our motivation would be love, we would know what gain and loss is, and the will, what I do, would exactly be that what I want. Through sinful nature, we lost that capacity. We think we're God, and so we have expectations and claims to others and to God and to ourselves. We think when others do it, then it is well with us. When others fulfill our claims and expectations, and this is where we go in our experience with God. As long as God fulfills our prayer, we are happy with Him, are we? But then when things appear like He doesn't listen to our prayer, then we get into trouble with Him because we say, "Oh Lord, what happened? Did you change? Did He change?" No, because He wants to teach us it's not Him that need to do anything for our happiness. It's us that need to do anything for our happiness. So all claims and expectations from others, even from God, in what we have to do is wrong. That's why we get into discontentment in wrath, in strife. We want to control others. We force, stress, and all our diseases in our body come from this situation where we want something that is not possible because we want others to fulfill our needs. No one can fulfill our needs, not even God. So how can I now make humans clear that they were not made that someone should fulfill their needs? No one can fulfill anyone's need. In this whole nature, in these whole laws, every individual must fulfill its needs. Children sometimes think that they are there to fulfill their parents' happiness. I mean adult children. And so they have to take care that mother is not unhappy. But we were never made to be anyone's spiritual food. But God is that. But we can direct our parents towards God, can we? Yeah. So we must know that when others come to us and want something from us, we can respond to help them to know how to do it. And do our relatives or mothers have anything wrong in mind when they want us to be around? No. But still, it's not the right way. So, we were not made to be someone else's happiness. Yes, we're going to meet the need of the other one. We show him that we love, but we must show them that our love won't change them. It's only when they act on love that is changing. So we have this error in our heart and we don't see it. It is so blinding that people really believe that others owe them something. But there is no one and no end that owe us. And God has given us a means how to open our eyes, and that is the fundamental law we must take in order to give. And we think we give in order to receive. The end of that is stress, anxiety, conflicts, depression, cancer, all chronic disease. All problems humanity faces are found in the error of man's spirit who thinks he is someone that he is not. So, last night we saw this law, and I want to go fast through it, but to remember it. It's in our heart we have only two actions, the taking and the giving. And we must, before we take, we must give. And all our giving goes into our body. So our body is an image of what we take. Because what we give to the body, we need to take before. This is so beautiful that you have the body as an unlying instrument of what your heart is taking from. I find it fantastic that you can make a spiritual thing to be seen physically. You can have an objective attitude towards the subjectivity. So that's my whole, that's a joy and that's an argument for all my patients. That I said, look to your body. He shows you what you think. So would you like to continue? Because you're the only one that thinketh that way. You're the only one that put that input there in your life. That's why you can see in the body where a person takes from. And I hope I show that in the presentation where we know that our children take from the mother, and I shared my story yesterday of how I took from my mother and how I became sick. Because I had no choice. As a child, you love your mom. For what purpose? To give or to take? To take. And actually, through our sinful nature, we have only taking relationships. Because we give to the person we take from, but we don't see the taking. So then if you have this, then you need only one relationship. And if I would have not explained you the law so basic, and I would have asked you how many relationships do you need to be happy, what would you have answered? 2 or 1? 1. But you need at least 2. You can never survive with 1. But you would think, well, is God not enough? No. Because God didn't make you that you should have a relationship with Him for Him. But He made you to have a relationship with Him in order to give, not to keep it for yourself. And this is, I think, one of the main problems that we see in our Christian life. We do make our prayers, we do our studies, but we don't do them for the purpose to give. We do them for the purpose to have a good time with God, or to be right with God, or to make our conscience to be okay, but we don't do it because we know we are called to service. And if you don't know it that we are called to service, our prayer will not avail. Jesus was a man. We will talk about him. Why did he need to pray? Did he need to pray? Did he have an intensive prayer life? Why? Because he was perfect. Was he? Was he perfect? Yes, he was perfect. Why did he need then to pray? Because he was a human, he had to take in order to give. How much did he have to give from himself? Nothing. And he was totally acknowledged that. He knew, next day I will take my 12 disciples and I will give them the instruction for their job to do. And how long did he pray that night? He prayed the whole night that he might be able to give the Sermon on the Mount. Why did he need to pray? Did he not know it? He had to have every day to receive, to take the power of God and be able to share it. You see, the morning didn't get Jesus in bed. You know? There was a story where he was late night. He worked till midnight. It was a Sabbath evening. He worked till midnight because the people only brought the sick people after the closing of the Sabbath. The sun was set and Jesus worked till midnight. And then what was the next day? What would he do the next day before the sun rises? It was still dark. The people came back to the house of where Peter's mother-in-law lived, and they knocked at the door and said, "Where is Jesus?" And the disciples, they were still sleepy, woke up, and did they find Jesus around them? Where was he? He was out in nature. They knew to search him out, and they came out and said, "Hey, the people are waiting for you, come." He says, "We don't go back. There are other people who are waiting as well." So where did he have that instruction? Why did he not orient after humans? From prayer. He knew from prayer what to do. And we are so trusting ourselves that we say, "Oh, we don't need to pray today. It's an easy thing to do. I need most to pray when I have nothing to do. Because then I fall into temptation." But I pray every time. But sometimes when I think, today I have no patient, or today it's Sunday, I just, on Sunday we go home. We fly home to Germany. And so you say, I'm relieved now, I'm just sitting in the airplane. But then it's the most dangerous time where you can be tempted, by a stewardess or whoever what comes there, or by the food. And then you need to know. You need to be prepared in order to give the good thing, whatever challenges comes unto you. So the problem of our heart is that we don't know that we need to take. But I hope from now on before you do something, that what comes out of you took from somewhere. When children come up with interesting ideas, did you see sometimes children say things that you say, where did he come up from? Did he come up them from himself? Yes or no? No, of course he expresses it, but he picked it up from somewhere where you didn't even pay attention. Because they pay attention. They're like sponges or vacuum cleaners, with a very high sucking power, yes? So don't think that they don't get what I say here. They get everything. Yes, and if it's something that is interesting for them, they pick it up. They might play, but at a later time, they suddenly speak it out, and you think, they never forget anything. And I did my experiment with children because we didn't have the privilege to have our own children, so God gave us 6 children, but they were already old. The youngest was 7, and the oldest was 17. But God was very merciful for me because He knows that I like to study, so He gave me an experiment at my practice. My helper married and became pregnant and got a child, and after 1 year of being home with the child, she says she wants to come back to work. And I have in Germany the obligation to take her back. Yes? And so I said, stay home with your child needs you. But she says, no, we bought a house and I have to come to work. I said, okay, so let's do a deal. I take you back, but you bring your child with you. And we will make a room free just for the child. And we will raise this child here together. So I didn't do this, I must say, without a personal interest. Because I wanted to see how does a child develop, which is young. And that child was 1 year old. And I had the privilege to raise that child for 2.5 years in my practice. In between patients, of course. But I had a vivid view. Every day I was in the practice to see how a child develops and how a child thinks. And you know, that child didn't take from me. He likes to eat. And so we ate together. And he was 1 year old, and his mother was a German mother. You know, German mothers are really relaxed mothers sometimes. They let the child do whatever he has to do. So he was eating by himself by 1 year. The mother didn't give him anything. She just put him in front. And so he ate his banana or whatever he stumped up in his mouth. And so we had much joy to eat together. But how long did he sit on that chair when his mother was gone? Just outside to do some work, because now she can work while I'm babysitting. And my my break of midday break. When he could walk very fast, he learned to walk in the practice at the beginning. And when his mom went away for a little while, he has to go to search her. And he didn't eat anymore. Where is mom? Couldn't speak. But when he once could come out of his chair, you know, they have a special chair to sit in to reach, yeah? No chance. He jumped out, searching for mom. Said, stay with me, I'm here. Why do you need mom? Why does he need mom? He has food, he has everything he needs there before. He needs mom because he needs a spiritual orientation. He must take from her. You see, in my practice, that child learned how to open doors. When he could open doors, I knew we have lost. Then he learned to jump out of his bed. When he first jumped out of his bed, I see now we lost. We cannot put him back in the bed again. He will jump out, and then he can open the doors. You cannot shut the doors. It's over. And then when she puts him sometimes in his bed, because she had to do something and I had to take care for the patients, then he was not crying, he was just shouting. Eee! And I opened the door because I had a door towards his room and said, shh, I have to work. Your mother comes immediately. So he was quiet as long as he saw me. And then I closed the door, and what happened? See, even louder. You see, and when he could speak, he never cried, doctor. He always cried, mother. When he was in a trouble, he didn't come to the doctor to fix the trouble. He went to his mom. I saw in those few years any mistake a mother can do with his child. And I must say, he was a beautiful child when he came in. But he didn't leave the practice so good as he came in. After 3.5 years, when he was 2.5 years in the practice, since his mom was divided, she had to work and he had to carve for her attention. And he could run with the time, and I had 2 doors where he could in. And you see, when you don't give the child work, he will give you work. So it's if you should train the child to run after you, not you after the child. But usually mothers run after their children. And he knew how to run. So he came in one door, I closed it here, and then he came to the other one because he was very curious sometimes, yes, to see. He learned how to jump from windows down to break his, and he learned how to break endoscopes and all the things. But it was a very, very blessed time for me because I learned how to deal with children and how children function from first sight. So I'm happy to not share things that I hear from others because I never like to hear from others. I want to know them by myself. So we need to take. And since the problem is taking, God gave us 10 commandments to show us that our problem is taking. But somehow we haven't realized that. And I wouldn't have realized it, that the taking is the problem. And the law warns us from the false taking if I would have not seen it in nature. There is no output without an input. Only the Spirit thinks he can have an output without an input. That's why that is the darkest place in our life. We don't see from whom we take, but we must take. So our disease comes because we do not know where we take from. That's why God says in the first 3 commandments, from here do not take. And he says in the 5th, 6th, not kill, no adultery, not steal, what you should not do. And I will stop here with the adultery because this is my story that I want to share. I was a little boy. I was not even 8 years. But I had a dream. That dream was, I want to have a happy family and a happy marriage. And I was always interested in girls since I was very young. And I was in my 1st grade. I didn't have a boy sitting with me in the class, but I had a girl sitting there. Because I thought the girl need to make me happy. See, at those days in Romania, we didn't go to school on Sabbath, but there was school on Saturday. And so I had to go to pick up my lectures that I missed from Sabbath on Sunday. So where did I go to take my lectures? Of course, I went to the girl. I still remember when we moved to the city after our parents separated. I was in 3rd grade. I was 8 years old. And I fell in love with that classmate. She lived on the other side of the town. And guess where would I go to take my lectures? I never learned. That was just a pretense to go to her because I took the lecture and threw them away. Because I just went there to meet her, to see her, because I always thought a woman must make me happy. Isn't that the wrong thinking? When I was 8 years old, in our church, there was a lot of preaching that Jesus is coming soon, the world is going to end. And I said, oh Lord, please, I want to marry before you come. I was afraid I won't get married before Jesus comes back. That was my dream. I was thinking a happy family is the fulfillment of your life. Anything wrong with that? You don't say anything now after this week. You learned it. So it doesn't look wrong, but it is very wrong. Because why do you want to get married? To take or to give? To take. So I got married very early. With 18, my wife and I, for her I was 19. For me I was 18, so we have 2 different countings. Because she counts when we got married in the church, and I count when we got married by the state. You know, you have to marry in Romania by the state first, and there was a little bit of a time in between because she had to go to the different countries, so we couldn't marry. However, so she counts the second marriage, so then I was 19, I count the first one, so we're on the same page. So I got married, and of course, I wanted to be what? loved. And my first need is harmony. And you have a dream always. You imagine how your wife should be, would you? She should be quiet. She should do her homework nice. She just be, when you come home, she's beautiful, she's dressed, she's perfumed, she just waits for you. Everything is nice. Yes? And that's what I thought about. But my wife is more a manager type of woman. They are doing things. They're not quiet. They are not slow. My wife has a double speed than me. I was raised up in the country where you go like this. But she was raised up in the capital where you go like this. So imagine I was always behind. Yes, and so I wanted harmony. But how can you have harmony? She took the train when he already was leaving. So So I wanted her to be the one that I desired to be. But she was different. What she desired, I don't know. But we went through times that were more difficult and not more so difficult. But after 15 years of marriage, we took these 6 children. God gave them to us. But I didn't become more happy through that, but even more unhappy. And if you're not fulfilled by what the other is doing, you will try to change the other, would you? So I tried to change my wife. I tried to do certain things. But have you ever tried to change a woman? Does it work? Have women ever tried to change a man? It works. Yes, that works. That's easier to do. Women are stronger personalities. You know that? Men are not so strong. So it's easier for a woman to change a man than for a man to change a woman. Yeah. You might not disagree. You might not agree. We don't need to agree with all parts. But in general, I speak. That's my experience. That's why we took these children, and I got, in this time where I was unhappy, I got a lot of addictions. And those addictions were sports. It was movies. It was the internet. And all those pages where men are very attracted to go. And I was a Christian at the same time. I always wanted to be a pastor since my childhood. And I even got to be a Bible worker. And I was with the youth. I preached. I want to preach every second Sabbath. In that church the conference gave me. But I couldn't overcome my addictions. There was no power in me. I prayed to God whenever I did the wrong thing, whenever I fell into my addiction. Before the internet age, you just have papers and movies or all this. But then came the internet and you have the devil in your house, isn't it? So you have all access to that. And when the lust comes, your mouth goes by itself. Yeah? It goes you have no control. And I prayed to God. I said, Lord, make me free. I wept. I said, Lord, I won't do this again. But just forgive me this once more. And then I had to go to preach because I was in service. But I thought God will kill me on the pulpit because I sinned last week so terribly, being in the internet and doing what you shouldn't do as a self-abuse and all that. And so I was afraid from God. But I always prayed, and I knew He forgave me, but I had no power to overcome. And I was sincere. I said, I won't do this again. But I couldn't help. Because I didn't know why. So as my addictions grow, as my unhappiness grows, and you get more and more in addictions, you have more expectation on your poor woman, you have more expectation on your children and all that environment, and you see yourself as the most miserable person on earth. And that's how I saw me. I was hungry, I was so restless, I couldn't sleep in the night because I said I lose time if I sleep. So I came home from work, I took care for the children, and then I had to do something fun for myself, even to watch a movie, or in the later years I couldn't stop the TV. I was at the hospital, I was on call, and then you have to be there for the patients, and you have a room where you can lay down if no one is there, and then at the end of the bed with the TV, and I said, if a patient comes at 3 o'clock, I will die. But I still couldn't stop zapping around because I was searching for something. There was a hunger in me that is unexplainable. And so, in the end, coming to the end of this, by the end of 2002, I was ready with my specialty, my internship. I became an ENT. And so I said to God, I will take a year off to fix my marriage, to finally become happy. But I soon saw that it won't work. And then I said to God, I must be happy. I was 39 years old, and I said, I need to be happy. And I said to God, Lord, I will do this detour. I just go to find that godly woman that I need, and then I come back. You see, I saw in the church He forgave others because they did this. And does God not forgive? Yes, He forgives. So I thought He will, because I didn't see any other way to get happy than finding a woman that would just be the one that I would be happy with. And I had only 3 desires. She should also be a little bit beautiful, but I wanted someone who understands me when I speak. See, my son-in-law, there was a seminar in the church, and he says, "Yes, and it was there about the languages of love and how to deal." And he says, "Yes, I start to talk sometimes with my wife, but in the moment I start to talk, she interrupts me, and then she talks." So then the man learned to talk how much? You wonder then why they don't talk. Because you stop them to talk. Because in the moment they want to open up. Yes? So I like to talk. And my wife likes to talk as well. So who is going to listen to each other? So I wanted to be listened to. But she's stronger than me. So I wanted to have someone who understands and listens. And then my third wish was to have a woman, because I needed harmony, that whenever she rises up in the morning, she would smile. Isn't that nice? You wake up and you see her face and she smiles. And then you are ready to go. Any woman here that can fulfill those wishes? Just a few, isn't it? But they are not fulfilled. Are they able? Can that make me happy? There's no woman that would fit to that. But this is our illusion. This is our error in our hearts. But I had this, and on the 1st June 2003, we were here in America, not very far away in Montana, visiting the Waters family, and we made the schedule to come to visit them and come to the Spokane, to the Washington camp meeting, the Restoration family camp meeting. And while we made that, I still had hoped that we should not need to be separated. But when we came at the 1st June, or 29 May, it was our anniversary, 20 May 2003. 29 of May. Wedding anniversary. Yeah, they know it. Anniversary is wedding anniversary. Did you understand it? Yes. Anniversaries, wedding. So we came here, and of course I already decided the separation. I quit the house. On 26th of July, we should be separated. The children should go back, the minors to their parents. I would go to my mom, and my wife would go to her mom, and everyone would start again at his mom. So that was the plan. So we came here to have we scheduled it. We could not change the flights. We would lose the money. So I said, let's make a last vacation together. There were 3 children with us here. And we had a counseling, and they counseled us. They spoke with us for about 3 hours. And my wife was weeping. Elaine was weeping. Tom was quite relaxed, and I was strong. I said, no, for me there is no turning back. I want to be happy, and I don't want anything wrong from this life. I just want my needs to be fulfilled, and I need to find that woman that makes me happy. And so after 3 hours of speaking with me, it finished, and I went down to take my tennis shoes to do something with our teenage children that were there with us. And while I went down the streets there in their yard, a thought came to my mind. And that thought says this: if you are going to fulfill my commandments, I will take care of your needs. That was a fantastic thought. Oh, my needs can be fulfilled. You see that I always preach from needs? You know why? That's the bottom line of our life, our needs. And it says, if you're going to keep my commandments, I will take care that your needs will be fulfilled. So the part that the needs would be fulfilled made me happy. But then I was looking to the condition. And what was the condition? Keep my commandments, and all that I knew then is no adultery. I had no reason to divorce my wife just because she was not the most harmonious or the most housewife or whatever I desired. Did I have a right then? No. It was just my need. So I said, not adultery. I said, Lord, but I was 20 years. I was there. Why didn't you make me happy? Now you want me to stay? And how will you do that? So I was confused. But the thought was there, and the time went on. It was Sunday the 1st, and we came on Wednesday to this camp meeting here. It started well. There was nice messages, but I always stood down. I wanted to do God's will, but I said, I must do this detour. Then I come back. On Friday night of that camp meeting on 6th of June, 2003, they gave out a bookmark. On that was my favorite Bible text written. God knows always how to do this, yes. And there was written, me and my house, we will serve the Lord. We had that on our door at the entrance for many, many years. That Bible text, because it expressed exactly my desire. Me and my house will serve the Lord. And so I took that Bible verse, and of course I signed it and put it in my Bible, but I couldn't take a decision to not separate. But the next day comes, the Sabbath comes, and in the afternoon we meet again with the family just to take goodbye, because they said on Sunday when the camp is over, all people want to ask something from them, and better to meet on Sabbath afternoon to have a good time, to not be interrupted. So we were sitting together in their, I think it was their bedroom, whatever. And suddenly, Tom was sitting in the left on me, and he says, are you committed to stay with your family? And the moment he said, are you committed? Back then, I knew what other people would ask me before they said the question. So I said loud, yes. Before he finished his question. Because I thought he asked me, are you committed to leave? Because I always was committed to leave. I was never committed to stay. So how does he ask that question? So he asked the question the wrong way around. And his end of the question comes together with my yes. And everyone hears it. And I see the faces of our children, 14, 16, and 18, and they look to me and they are scared because before we entered this place, he was convinced we go to separate, and now he's committed to stay. You see how God is good with us? He uses our mistakes, our preconceived, our foolishness for our good. So now I had to take a decision. I said yes to something I didn't want to say yes. I said yes that I'm committed to stay, while I was not committed to stay. But now I had to take that yes back. Or to leave it and jump myself after it. And I don't know why I did it, but I did it. I jumped after the yes. And in a moment I jumped after the yes. Everything that God promised me was fulfilled. From a person that was driven. I was so thirsty for the love of a woman, it just cannot be expressed. I was so in a desperate situation. In a split of a second, I was okay. My drivenness disappeared. I got a peace that never left me since that moment. That peace is for me the confirmation that God's Spirit is still with me. Because you cannot give you this peace. What happened with all my addictions that I fight it for 20 years? I knew they were sin. I knew from my childhood that every movie is sin. And I still believe it till today. That every movie is sin. And I knew it. And so I could not stop. And after the 1st June 2003, am I still in addiction? Am I still having a battle with it? No. Why not? Because, you see, God gave me a gift before I could understand what the law means. What did I do when I said yes? The first time I took from God again. And by taking from God, in that moment, He could come into my heart and bring all that, what I needed, with Him. And through the presence of the Holy Spirit, you get everything you need. Do you? Do you still need a woman to make you happy? Do you still need? No. Because the presence of God, when you come into that connection to take from God, you become in your heart a changed person. The phenomenon was so strong that our 3 children, 14, 16, and 18, became converted at the same time. We were, the next day, there was such a peace in our communion, and it was not a peace before. You know, it was always a fight there in our family. We have a 14, 16, 18, and they have all their needs, and my wife and me, and we were sitting there. It was perfect peace between us. And my oldest, 18 years old, said, "Can we not go home?" Because we still had a week vacation in America. And he said, "We are so fulfilled. Because they knew what vacation means with me. You go to every joyful park, you go to movies, you go to do this and you go to that, and there is no rest there." And they liked it. Children like that. But now no one had any desire for that. But I said, our flight goes only in 1 week back. So let's go for hunting bears in Canada. So we went up from Spokane. We had rented a Jeep, And we want to see if we find bears somewhere. And we saw 3 bears on our roads searching for bears. And so we had a nice time out in nature without that desire. We came to our first night to the hotel on that Sunday, and I usually would go into the hotel, and what do? Turn on the TV. There was no need for TV. We had our TV 1 year in our house. No one watched TV anymore. And we were a family that regularly watched TV before. And after 1 year I said, why should we keep the TV here in our living room if no one uses it? Let's give it out. So, when we take from God, He comes into our life and He brings with Him His power, that is His need. And I learned in this experience that I only can take harmony from God. And when I give harmony, I am fulfilled. When I take it not, but when I give it, I am fulfilled. So, since then I'm learning the lesson to give that what I take from God and to not take any more from here. So that's the experience that God gave me, and that was my conversion story. And since then, my life with God has changed and increased. But the people who knew me before, when they saw my conversion, some thought, oh, this is just a small fire, that he's now on fire. And when they saw after a few years, they confessed to me and said, well, we thought this would be just for a short while, that you would be like this. But God kept me since then to stay on the track and to not fall back. You see, I don't even see a soccer game. I always thought that soccer is no sin. You know that? I saw that, and I put the TV in the basement because I couldn't stop seeing. But I thought whenever there was a championship, European championship or world championship, I brought the TV out from the basement because it's okay to see soccer. So this year is again soccer, is it? I think world championship. And after my conversion 2003, in 2006, there was the world championship in Germany. Did I have any problems with it? You see, God took away the soccer together with the internet and the movies. Because it's still a competition. You still gain your gain by beating others. That's competition. How can you enjoy a game in which others are beaten? And they are happy when they beat others. So God is not in those things. So He took that also away. And I'm so glad that I'm not a soccer fan anymore. I'm free of it. I was a very strong fan, especially for Germany. You know, the Germans, they're the best soccer player. So, no adultery, no steal, not lie. From here do not take. I wanted and I took always from my wife. I took from humans. I was the most funny doctor around. From always I did Glume. Made jokes. I always made jokes because I lived from the laughter of the others. You have to do jokes, and when you see the other laugh, how good is it? I never could speak a word when sitting on the table or in the OR when I did surgery that I had to not make a joke. I had to do a joke. Everyone knew me. This is the joker. This is the one that is fun to be around because he always has a word to trip, and everyone laughs. You see how that changed after my conversion? Before I started to say the joke, there was something there that said, well, think about it first. And so I learned to not make jokes. But I'm still having humor, yes? And I can say things so that people can laugh about it. I hope I don't say that I should be happy with it. So it's very important to know that you don't take any more from humans. So we take from humans unaware of it. That's why I was joking. So God says in 8 commandments, do not take from humans. Because you can only break the commandments when you take from humans. And then we have seen the Sabbath law. It's the only law that says take. That's why in the last battle between good and evil, this says in the middle, because Sabbath is a symbol of who you are. If you are a created being or if you are a creator. That's why the battle is about this only one law. Because this is the law. This is that thing that says you are a creator, you can take only from God. And then honor thy father and thy mother. And I will tell you the story of a lady that was by her father abused in her childhood. And her father was a pastor. And I met the lady when she was 59 years old. And she had many diseases. 6 years before I met her, she went to a Christian therapy place, was there for 10 weeks, and they suggested to her that she should quit all relationship with her parents, and so she did that. But after that, she got even more sick. She got fibromyalgia on her whole body and pain, and no one can help her. And so she comes to my seminar, and she hears me. It is challenging, the message. Is the message challenging? And then she hears me, and then she says, I see that you must be right, but I cannot. Can she honor her father and her mother? Can she do it? If father and mother abused you, can you honor them? Can you or can you not? No. But if you cannot honor them, that means you still take from them. If your father is in debt to you, you are still a prisoner and you break the 5th commandment. That is, you show through breaking the 5th commandment that you break the 1st commandment of taking from God. That's the law. Does the law take any consideration who you are? If you are a pastor's wife or a pastor's child, does that take any consideration? Is the law taking any persons before the other? No. So the law says, honor thy father and thy mother, that it might be well for you. And the one that understood the law, my also favorite attending is Paul. And Paul says that's the 1st commandment with a... Why is the promise in the giving? Because in the giving is shown if you give the love of God. That's why that is the decisive element to show if we are really taking from God. As long as we take from our parents, and she cannot overcome what her father has done to her, she cannot honor him, she cannot love him, because she thinks he owes her something. Did he do her wrong? Did he do her wrong? Did the father wrong? Yes, he did wrong. But she now understands that the father did wrong to whom? To God. And now she could go to the father and say, poor father, God may have mercy with you. He's now 83 or 84. But you see, she has a double problem. Not only that the father did it to her and he's a pastor, but he never really confessed or saw it a big thing what he did. He just said, well, you know. And so he went on and he finished his career. He was a famous pastor, evangelist. And no one knew anything. And she has whom then, does she judge him or not? Does she judge him? Yes, she says he's an hypocrite. He says one, and look at how he looks outside, and no one knows what he has done for 9 years to me. No one knows that. And he does not even show that he is really sorry for it. Because sometimes we think if the other would show that they are sorry, we think then it's fine with us. But we still would be victims if others would show that they are sorry. So can she honor her father and mother? Can she or can she not? Is she doomed to die or is she not doomed to die? Is she or not? Does she do that because she's free? Because she has a choice or no choice? No choice. The choice only comes when she receives that chance that I got at my 7th June 2003, when she might understand that her father did not owe her anything. And she must stop taking from father and mother. From everyone you keep accountable to you that he did wrong to you, you are taking from that person. And God knows exactly that we take from our parents while we were children, but we must come to the place where our parents are on the other side, where we never take from them anymore. We just give to them that what we take from God. And can we give the love of God to a father that abused us? Yes or no? Yes, can we give it? There was one lady in my practice to counsel, and her father and mother abused her. And they died. Both were dead. Or the father was only dead. And the mother, I think, was still alive. And she was sitting there. I counseled her. She was broken. She had many diseases in her body. And it came all because of not being able to honor father and mother. And so I said to her, look, this is the love of God. I had a pen in my hand. And I said, would you like to take this pen and give it to your father? And in the moment you give it to your father, you're healed. That's all. You take it from God and you give it to your father. Does God love the abuser? Where do we know it? He proved it. Does he? Did he? Jesus said, Father, forgive them. And he was one with his Father. God says, I love the good and the evil. I let the sun shine over the good and over the evil. What stops us to love the evildoer is because we take from them. We take them responsible to us. That it means we play God. We think they owe us something. And I tell you all the stories. In my practice, that was one of the first things that I saw. That is the 5th commandment that we break that makes us sick. We cannot honor our parents as long as we judge them, as long as we think they did us something wrong. There is no honor, there is no health. Because it proves we take from them. We don't take from God. When we call them every day, and we are over 20, we call them to take. Amen? We don't call them because we are caring for them. We call them because we want something from them. That's not honoring the parents. Honoring the parents means I love you because I take my love from God. And it doesn't matter what you have done. I still love you. I had my issues with my father. And I prayed for 4 years before I knew the law. Because I knew I have to love him. That, as far as that I knew, but I didn't know how to do it. And I said, how can I love my father who sent my mother away with 4 little children? And how can I love such a person who never cared for you the whole life? I was 8. He didn't pay any contribution. We didn't know it. My mother said it was the last day. They brought the last bread with the last money. She said, now we don't know what to eat. We didn't know it, but she told it to us. And so now what do you do? Do you have a righteousness sense in you? Yes or no? You have. And then you could say, hey, you didn't do your duty towards me. And I prayed for 4 years to love my father. Because I didn't know how to do it. And today I love him. There were, not a few years ago, my father got sick. And I told him why he got sick. And I tried to help him. But anyway, I said to God, I said, Lord, when my father dies, he's now 85 years old. I said, when my father dies, I would like to stay at his grave and know that he confessed his sin, that he divorced my mom and sent her away with 4 little children. Why did I do that? To take or to give? I thought I would do it for his sake. But lately, or after time, I realized I did it for my sake. Does my father need to confess his sin, that I know it? No. He might confess it for himself. But I want what? You see, our selfish nature wants the good, but it pretends it like a God, like a one that stays there and wants to judge. If my father dies one day, I want to be at his grave and I want to be happy for his life. And there should be no condemnation, no judging, nothing. I don't want to stand there as a victim of my father, but one that is redeemed, that can honor his father and his mother. You see, when I prayed to God one morning, long years ago, I realized that I cannot be in heaven without my mom, but I can be in heaven without my dad. And you know that both are wrong. You should be able to be without your mom in heaven, and you should want that your father should be in heaven. And so I said, Lord, I have to do this switch. I have to love my father as I love my mother, that I want them to be saved, but I have to even let them be lost. That's love. So we will never be able to honor our parents except we don't take from them anymore. The father and the mother must be in our mind as a person that never hurt us. That we can love for God's sake, not because they were good or not good. Because the law doesn't take any countenance how others are. And if you never take from others, why should you not give them the love of God? It's not your love. I told this lady in my practice, it's not your love. Just take it and give it, because you must take it and give it. This love heals you while you give it to your father. Your father is dead, it doesn't matter. But in your mind, he's alive. You have to give it to him and love him. And in that moment, I promised her, you will be healed. She started crying. I didn't know what she did. But I had an old lady once. She's 78. And she came into my practice with a terrible cough. And she coughed for 1 year and 2 months. But it was a cough that is, it sounds terrible. So we have 2 hours more tonight. Okay. I finished, but she came to that cough. She was 78, and I said, what do you have else? And she told me that she had a cancer on her uterus, cancer, 20 years ago, and she got surgery and radiated. But since 10 years, she has a urine bladder that she cannot keep the urine. And she must go to the toilet every 30 minutes. If she takes strong medication, she can keep it for 2 hours. And she did a lot of surgeries to do that plastic to keep somehow that urine there. But it didn't work. And now she got the cough. And now you imagine what that means. And now she has these 2 things, the cancer, the bladder, and the cough. And I said to her, you have a burdened heart. And I asked her to come for counsel. And she came, and I took her story. And what was her story? A story that her mother used her while she was young. She preferred the boys. You know, in the old age, the boys were more worse than women and the girls. And so preferred the boys. And said, she just used me. And my mom never said thank you to me. And her mom died 20 years ago. Then she got the cancer. And since then she has her issues. Now I said to her, because I couldn't explain to her all the law of life those days, because she's 78, and because on that day I had just little time, and so I said to her, look, you must love your mother. The law of life requires you to give love to everyone. That's how you live. You see how we give the oxygen to our body, we must give love to others. That's life. Have you understood that? Not in our health system. Because we take the oxygen, but we don't see that it is a demand for life. The Bible says, he who does this law will live through it. So it is a demand for us to love, like it is a demand to breathe, like it is a demand to drink water, as to eat the right food. We have to love. There is no choice for that. If you want to live, you must love. But is love not the best thing you have? What this gives you more joy? The eating? Does that satisfy your joy? Yes, it is a satisfaction, but there is no satisfaction higher than when you love a person. There is no feeling higher. There is no drug that can make you such a good feeling than when you love another person. There's nothing else. And we deprive ourselves by this action because someone else did something wrong and we dare not overcome it. But this mother just, how much did she do wrong? She didn't say thank you. Now I said to this old lady, I said, look, you need to love your mom. Doesn't matter. The law doesn't. She was a Catholic lady. And I said, because I live in a Catholic region there in my practice. And I said to her, you go and ask God to change your eyes. That is the eye of the heart, yes? So that you can love your mom. You have to see your mom with the eyes of God, not with yours. And so she went home, and 3 weeks later she came for the next counseling session. And she waited for 1.5 hours in my waiting room. And when I saw who waited, I said, you waited here half an hour? I didn't hear you cough. Because her cough was so loud. You hear it to all the doors. And she said, she came in very, very smiling. I said, you know, doctor, I don't cough anymore since I was here with you lately. I said, what happened? So I put her sit down. And she said, well, doctor, I did exactly what you said. That's like oil, you know, when the patient does exactly what the doctor says, isn't it? It's like, goes in like nothing. She says, she went home and she prayed before she went that evening tonight. And she said almost the same words that I said to her to say. Help me to see my mom different so that I can love her. And she says, since then, she says that prayer. Since then, she says, the cough disappeared and my urine bladder works perfectly. In 3 weeks, I don't need to go one night to wake up to go to the toilet. It all works like always. And she went to her family doctor and she told him, and he said, how did you do that? You see, God encouraged me through this older lady. Did she change her mind? She was just willing. Did I change my mind when God came into my life? And I must say, I also lost a lot of diseases on those 7th June. I had migraine, I lost it. I had my back pain, that I lost it. There was a relief of my body in the moment I took from God, and I was freed at that place. So, honor our parents is a demand for life. And it's the hardest thing to do. That's why we take from them while we are young. We have the greatest demands from our mother. That's why God put that giving law immediately after the taking law, so that we understand, if we cannot fulfill this, we cannot fulfill anyone. That's why it's the first command with a promise. That's why it is the fulfilling of the law. It shows that you really fulfilled your law. And so the devil needs just to tempt your parents to do you something wrong, and then you're the whole life set. Because you hold them accountable to you. You hold them in a thing with you, and then you wonder why you're sick. You wonder why you come to 78 years and you have a lot of issues, because you cannot honor your parents, because you still have your parents on your waiting list, on your debt list. So let's go to the solution in the next 2 hours. So the good is evil. This is the good. The good is infinite, because God is infinite. And love is infinite, and the law is infinite. The evil is an intruder. He does not belong to the good. He is the opposite of the good, because he's the anti-law. He's the breaking of the law. You see, I prove in my series, and you know that most of you don't know that those bookmarks out there with the Bible school, they are my Bible school, that's what I do. So if you want to see that, I do a weekly study there, online, and we have to, right now, preparation for the end time. And I show to my viewers and to my patients especially, I do it to be very simple, that you cannot say that evil is a part of the good. You cannot say that evil is not existent, because this is a lot of saying today. It's just another thing. Well, if it would be just another thing, it would be not anti-law. Evil cannot come from God, because God is the law, and that's why the anti-law must come from somewhere else. So evil is an intruder, is the opposite of the good. They can never be the same. Now the question is, how can the intruder be eliminated? The plan of salvation is about eliminating the evil from the universe. And there are 2 battlefields. You know the 2 battlefields in the great, it's the universe, but since only on earth the evil spread, the final battle will be given on earth. And the next battlefield is the human heart or mind, where in the spirit of mind of man is the error who thinks he is God. So what needs to be removed first? The earth needs to be free from the evil and the universe, or in man needs first to be? Yes, the first work is man. Who is the main actor? Who is the main leader of the battle? The main actor of both battles is Christ. Yes, we find that through the whole Bible. So our interest is right now to get rid of that which is in our heart. So we know that evil entered in our life through the change of an identity in our heart. From a creature, we thought that we become God. That's what changed, and we forget that we are a creature. That's the first change. When Adam sinned, it changed its identity. And then the world became the dominion of the devil, because Adam lost his kingdom. And so this needs also to be restored. The devil, Lucifer, became the one that now rules the earth. So Christ as a human must conquer both battles. And so at the first coming, he battles the battle of the heart. at his second coming, that's why he has to kill the problem in the heart of man and make us again to see that we are creatures. And as the second and third coming of Christ, he destroys and judges all humans and Lucifer that kept the deception, that they want to keep it, and then he renews the earth and it will become the home of the saved. So there are two battlefields, the heart and our earth. And this is part of the universe. Now, we need to know, why did Christ come into the world? Why did he need to incarnate? Now, this is a little bit of high theology, but I try to make it very simple. The problem is in our hearts. Is it an inner problem or outer problem? An inner problem. Can God come into our heart to solve the problem, or can he not? Can he or can he not? I wanted to hear a no. He cannot come in our heart to save us. If he could, we would need no Redeemer. When Adam sinned, his heart was closed. We will see this more tomorrow. Adam could not return, and God had no access to him. So this sinful nature, this idea, this change of identity separated man from God forever. There was no possibility, neither for God to enter man's heart, neither for man to go back to God. So now how can this problem be solved? So that's why there must be a new creature. There must be a life that combines both together. So that's why Jesus, the Word, was made flesh. Incarnation was only needed because there had to be a change in the inner man. And man could not change it in himself anymore. So God needed to become man to change the problem in himself. So did Jesus come on earth to change a problem outside of him or a problem inside of him? I hope we all understand it's inside of him. But this we don't understand because we have not understood that faith is an inside problem. Sin is an inside problem, not an outside problem. Faith is something that is subconscious. And he came to restore faith, did he? Yes. So, he came as born from two parents. Yes? So, all by the law of inheritance, we can very simply explain the nature of Christ. Because we just need to know the law of inheritance. So, he had a father. Who was Jesus' father as a human? The Holy Spirit, but from whom brought the Holy Spirit the genes, the chromosomes? Okay. It's the only begotten Son of God. So, Jesus was begotten through the Holy Spirit in the womb of Mary. His physical body, where did he have it? From? He could have it half from his father and half from mother. You know that Jesus was a man? Was he a man? He needed how many chromosomes? 46. So, from when did he have 23? From 23 he had from his mother, and where did the other 23 come? From his father. The X chromosome of Jesus didn't come from a human. It was a human X chromosome that came from his heavenly Father. There is no X chromosome in women. Women's Y chromosome. X, sorry. Thank you. I want to say Y, not X. Women have an X chromosome, or two sometimes, but they don't have a Y chromosome. Yes? So the Y chromosome is only in men. So you cannot make out of Mary a man. So body-like, Jesus was half from his father and half from his mother. The law does not permit it otherwise. But people are fancy. They think that God can break his own law. If God can break his own law, then he is changeable, and God is not changeable. So his body was half-half. How was his spirit? That's his body. Now we come to the spirit, because also your spirit is half-half of what? Half of mother, half of father. So he had a half of a spirit from his father and a half of his spirit from her, his mother. Where is the error in the heart? In the body, or where is the error of man? In the body or in the spirit? The error can only be in the spirit. So he inherited from his father the good eye, knowing that he's a creature, and he had from his mother the evil eye, thinking that he is God. So, what did he need to do in his life? What was the battle in his life? Now, you see here, he was born from his father. So, did he have a connection from his father from inception? Yes. Did he trust his father from inception? Yes. Because he had that nature that trusted his father automatically from inception. But he came to conquer in his heart the battle and to remove sinful nature. He isolated, he never unlawfully connected from birth until the death of the cross through this. He inherited it, but it never was functioning. Because he was functioning only through his father's inherited nature, he used only this connection from birth until the death of the cross. So Jesus was connected to his father in his heart. I do another thing where it's more vivid. His trust to his father was from birth there, and it had to stay there how long? Always. It has to be there. That's the faith that overcame the world. And we will study tomorrow and see Hebrew 12, where it says, Jesus is the beginner and the end of whose faith? Our faith, because only faith will bring us back to God. The only connection to God is to trust. That's how we connect to God. Spiritually, it's only trust. So Jesus fighted in his heart what? His sinful nature. Was he tempted? To his first temptation that is written in the Bible, when he went into the desert. What kind of a temptation was it? If you are a God, yes, Son of God, means you are God, then you do out of these stones bread. What was the temptation? Where was he tempted? Where was Jesus tempted? In the giving or in the taking place? What would he have done if he would have made out of stones bread? He would have taken from whom? From Lucifer. He would have listened to Lucifer. He would have taken from Lucifer for what sake? To save his own life. But Jesus says very nicely, and most don't understand what he says. He says, the man, which I am, does not live from bread alone, but from every word. What does he mean by the word? By the law. The word is the law. By every word that comes out of the mouth of God. So Jesus says, I take only the words from God. I trust only God. And if he let me die, I die. That's trust. If not, he would have said, maybe I need to help myself. And could he go back to his divinity and say, I make this out of this stone's bread? Could he? Yes, of course, because he was God. Imagine you are God in the bag, and now you have to conquer the idea, I'm a God. Is that an easy battle or a difficult battle? It's a bit difficult battle. The next temptation comes, the devil says, jump down, because your Father promised you. You believe His word. You now jump because you trust His word. And Jesus says, okay, I understand, but I only have the promise of the word when the Father says to me, jump. And since the Father doesn't say jump, I don't jump, because only then you have the promise. So Jesus didn't take from the devil. And then the devil offers him the whole world. Are many people tempted to take the whole world from the devil? Yes. But could Jesus be tempted by that? Because he said, Jesus, you came to conquer this world back. Look, I give it to you from me. And what did Jesus say? Poor guy, you have nothing to offer to me because you owe nothing. My Father owes anything. I worship Him. I go and take this world back from my Father. That's why the devil disappeared. And there was the other greater temptation. You know, there are only two temptations in life. Some people wonder, they say, well, Jesus was not tempted with women or all this kind of stuff. But if you know the heart, there are only two temptations. And all those two we have, and all those two Jesus had as well. There's only the one temptation that you take from someone else instead of God. That's the one temptation. And the other temptation is to not take from God what God says to you to take. Those are both. Only those two are the breaking of the law. So now comes the temptation in Gethsemane. Why is the temptation in Gethsemane stronger than the temptation that he had in the wilderness and during his lifetime? Because here is Christ, here is God having the cup. Yes? What kind of cup? The cup of wrath against sinful nature. Yes? And now the Father says, Son, take it. And where did the devil stand? Exactly in between the cup and Jesus. Saying, don't take the cup. You see, Jesus asked those two disciples that wanted to be the greatest after him. He said, are you able to drink the cup? And they said what? They said, yes, of course. And you know what they say. But they said, yes, you will drink the cup. So the Father gives the cup. And now Jesus is tempted to not take the cup. Because he does not know the end of it. But what determines him to take the cup? Trust that the Father will not overwork him. The cup is exactly measured for Christ to overcome every sinful nature, to overcome everything on the cross that he will be tempted. And he knew whatever would come, it would not overwork him. That's his trust. So after he fighted that battle to take the cup that he could only take through faith, because he did not know, or he didn't know how heavy it was. But he was afraid he would not fulfill it. That's why I said, is it possible there should be another way? He did not want to not take the cup, but he thought maybe there is an easier way. Would we not sometimes think there must be an easier way? We sometimes think there must be. God only knows. He says, drink the cup. That's the only way you can be saved. So Jesus was tempted in those temptations that we are. We are tempted to not take from God, that is to take from humans and the devil. Or when God gives us the cup, we say, oh no, Lord, don't give us this cup. We'd rather go here to do this. And just give a practical example. God gives us children and he says, raise them. And you say, oh no, better go to work. So we don't drink the cup. We don't do the duty that he gives to us. That's breaking of the law. That's sin. That's the sin that really matters. Not those deeds that outcome of that. So there are only two temptations. When God gives you the cup, you don't take it. Or when someone else comes and offers you to take from him, and you take from other ones than from God. And both are only possible through trust. What needs more trust? The more trust is to take the cup from God. That's more trust. That's also will be our last temptation at the end of time, when we have to drink the cup of the wrath of God that comes on the earth. Jesus was healthy in his body because he never took anything from sinful nature. He mortified it, he crucified it. And what gives he to us as inheritance? What is the inheritance to us? His victory. So let's look how that victory looks. I did a very personalized thing, and I finish with this, I hope so. A personalized life, the life career of Jesus and my life career. So this is Jesus. He lived on earth. His earthly life was composed of two natures. He had his earthly life, that is his human life, was on two natures. He had the good eye from his father, and he had the evil eye from his mother. Why did he go to the cross? What did he need to kill on the cross? He had to kill on the cross sinful nature. I call it on the cross. The Father took the surgery to cut out sinful nature from Christ forever. And when he cried out, "It is finished," that thing was done. Christ's heart got the victory over every temptation. That was his trust in his Father was forever established. No time, never again in this universe will mistrust in God have an entrance. That accomplished Jesus and his Father on the cross. So he resurrected. He had to die on the cross because he died after he killed this. Because he had to take away the result of sin, that is death. He had to conquer death, and he had to conquer all the results that sinful nature did in the human being. So when he resurrected a total new being. That's the new creature. And with this new creature, he went up to heaven as a high priest, and he will come back as a king. That's his career. Now, my career is down here. That's me. The only place to meet Christ is where? It's on the cross. Me, I was born from how many parents? 2. Both parents were earthly parents. And I had how many natures? 1. I had only the sinful nature. How much good deeds could I do out of this nature? No good deeds. My whole life was a dark. You see, that's all sin. Those dark things there. So, now what happened on the cross? What happened on the cross on the 7th June 2003? That was my experience on the cross. My life went up to Christ. My whole sinful life. He took over on 7th June 2003 when I said yes in my heart to stay with my family. And what did I receive? I received his life that he inherited from his Father. He came to give me. At the cross, then he covered with his life my whole life. So, how many sins do I still have in my life at the cross? No one. Because, you see, the exchange of life is a real thing. What I did, let's make it very practical. If you yesterday killed a person and you go today to the cross and exchange your life, who killed the person yesterday? Did you kill the person still yesterday? No. Jesus took your life over and you have his life that killed no person. That's the exchange of life. So if you were abused yesterday, and you bring your life and exchange it to Christ, who was abused yesterday? To whom was it done unrighteousness yesterday? To whom? To Christ. So, do you bother anymore for your past? Does it matter what was yesterday? Yes or no? No, of course not. You are free because on the cross you receive Christ's total holy life and you are a free person. No things. My wife sometimes comes to remind me on my old days. And I says, go to my Lord because his problem now, not mine. So she can complain with him. There's nothing with me to complain anymore because that's not my life anymore. My life is in Christ. He took it over. He will take care for all my sin that I did. And what other did to me, he will judge. But I am a free person. My past is gone. Now, did I live after the 7th June 2003 till, what do we have today? 18 May? Yes, I lived. Did I sin after the cross? Unfortunately. Why did I sin after the cross? Because I got at the cross a new nature. You see, at the new birth is a reality. You receive a new nature that you didn't have before. That's why Jesus says to Nicodemus, you must be born from above. That's not just a faith, that's not a belief, that's the reality of the heart. And you have to experience it. That's a freeing thing. So after the cross, my new nature is growing. Yes? And what happens with my sinful nature? It must be crucified again and again. Every day I go to the cross. Every day, and I walked here every morning up that beautiful trail, and every morning I had to confess and see my sin. I said, Lord, I have to destroy this sinful nature. Because was I tempted while I was here? Was I or was I not tempted? Yes, of course. This device tempted me several times. And I felt the temptation, but I might not have expressed it. But sometimes, yes, I was tempted. I was tempted by some situations. I don't need to go into details. But I had to go to the cross each day to say, Lord, I have to exchange my life. And I have to get a new life. And there are two things that must happen in your life. You cannot only get forgiveness, you need liberation. Liberation and forgiveness must come together. Did Christ at the cross, when I said yes, free me from my past? Not only from what I did, but I was free from every addiction that I had until then. That's liberation. Because that's the power of God that sets you free from the power of sin. But you still have things in your life that you don't know. And so you need to go to the cross. And so every day my sinful nature needs to be crucified. And one day I want that it should be totally crucified. And at the end, only God's nature, Jesus' nature should be my nature. So when I come to this place, when he ends his priestly service in the sanctuary, through which he gives me forgiveness and liberation or sanctification, then he comes back as a king. But then my sinful life comes to an end. Because I don't take from any human anymore. I just take from God. That's the process of getting totally free. And I believe in total liberty. I don't believe in half liberty. I don't know where I am here in this process. Of course, everyone who dies in this process is saved. But that's not the goal of God. You know that? It's not the goal of God to have only half saved people. Only half restored people. He wants to have a group of people at the end of time that are totally saved. Totally liberated, totally restored, and he also set the number for them. They are the number of the 144,000. They must reach this point. If not, this world will never end. There must be accomplished the place. And then he comes back as a king, and then he will transform me in a new creature. Isn't that a fantastic thing? I so love it. Because I want to be among those 144,000. I don't want to get just half saved. I don't just want to die somewhere here on the place. And yes, it won't matter if I die today. I know I'm God's child. He will decide about my salvation. Do I earn salvation? Do we have a right of salvation? No. It's just a grace and gift of God. If he gives it to us, it's always undeserved. That's why I don't bother about my salvation. I just bother to be free. And my son, who just recently converted 2.5 years ago, he said, just the idea that one day I could be free, deciding to do that what I want, never be tempted or never be falling into temptation to do something that I don't want, that's a glorious thought. That's a perspective that is worth fighting for, isn't it? For me, it's worth fighting because I know Jesus comes into my life. In this time, he will come. I know it. I can confess it. And that's why I prepare for this. Because I want to be, when he comes, alive. And I want to be ready, sealed with the stamp of God that says, finished. Finished while I'm still in this earthly life. Not changed yet. Because Jesus was finished in this earthly life when he said, it is finished. And he will say it is finished when he comes out of the sanctuary. He will say it's finished. What is finished? The battle of the heart. Every human being is decided for life or for death. And there will be only two kinds of people on earth. Those who are totally sanctified. So with them, Jesus can do nothing. His salvation came to an end. You know, salvation must come to an end. You're only saved when you're free. And so salvation comes to an end. When he seals the 144,000, they are sealed for eternity. His work in them is finished. It's over. That's why he says it's over. And all the others who are not saved, they cannot be changed anymore because they have totally rejected him. And so he says there is no one to be saved anymore, and there is no one to be forgiven anymore. There is no one to be sanctified anymore. I am done. My work is finished. And then he comes out. And it depends on us to co-work with him that he might come again. But he will come in our time. He will find the people. And is it many 144,000? But imagine you have in America, how many Christ-like Christians would you need to evangelize America? How many Christ-like? Totally, how many of this who are already sanctified do you need to evangelize America? 100. You need maybe 1,000 or 2,000, but those would be such a light so that all America gets the gospel in 1 month. There will be no problem because then the power of God is fully revealed in human life. That's our destiny. That's why we prepare for the end time. That's why I say in my presentations that I do for end time preparation, we do not fear the end time. We prepare for the end time in the most struggling time when the earth will be shaken from all parts. We will know this is the hour because for this we are in this world today. That's why Jesus says when they came to him and they wanted to crucify him, he didn't say, I flee away. No, he says, for this hour I came to the world. And for this hour, this is our destiny. That's why we prepare. That's why we go to the mountain, not to get our own garbage done or our own, self-sufficiency. We do not flee from our task. We just have the mountains to prepare for the task. But on that day, we won't stay in the mountains. On that day, we go out because we have a mission to fulfill in this world. And that mission will be glorious because the glory of the Lord will be upon this earth, how waters fill the earth. And it will be through just 144,000 people who became ready for him. I think that's worth living. That's why I walk with God. That's why I want one day. And that's what I said this week. That will be my first day of work when I'm ready. Then I will really work for Christ. Until then, I'm still in training. Until then, I have to go every night, every morning to confess my sin. But after that, I really do work because my heart is clean. I will just take from God, never from another man. And I believe in this because I know this is the plan of God. And he started a work in us, and together with him, he will finish it. I finish here. even though I would go on speaking about my favorite subject, the 144,000, and the preparation for that. But you can see my presentations online on the Bible School on preparing for eternity.